So now let's move towards our next session, which is on electrical vehicle in India. For conducting this session, we have Mr. Ravi Kiran Annaswamy with us. He is the founder and CEO of Numosity Technologies and works closely with global programs like Founder Institute and Unreasonable Institute. He is on the global team of IEEE 5G and former vice president, memberships and marketing for IEEE TIMS. So let's start the session. Redirecting to our speaker, Mr. Ravi Kiran Annaswamy. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to all of you, and I still uh, like that Andy is in the call, so thanks Andy for staying on late. Thanks Robert for the early morning session, and good morning or early afternoon to everybody in the call. I'm also very happy to see nearly 70 odd people. I just now saw 72 or 73 attendees in this webinar. Good to have all of you here, and also good to see that you are interested in learning a lot about technology and engineering management. And I think you got a fair idea of what we stand for as a society. In my session, I'm going to focus mostly on one technology and take you through from a market point of view. And the topic I've picked is where I work on for quite some time now. It's on electric mobility. The idea here is to give you some glimpses on what's happening in India, what's happening in general around electric mobility. And as a TEMS member, you also learn skills to analyze various technologies which come into every market, various technologies which are coming in newly, and also multiple ways to get these ideas to reality. In this session, I'm not going to talk very specifically on those skills, but it's an introduction on electric mobility. So when we recently discussed with many students, all of them have a different perspective on anything which happens around electric vehicles. When I mean electric mobility, it's the way electric vehicles are being deployed in the market. EV is the vehicle itself. So everybody has a different perspective. Some people looked at it from a vehicle point of view, some from electrical point of view, some from digital point of view. So it's not one picture, it's multiple aspects. I tried to cover various technologies, various topics which are going on around electric mobility. So when we say electric mobility or electric vehicle, the first thing which I'm quite sure all of you will recognize is a Tesla. Model S is just the image I've used, but it could be any of the Tesla models. Tesla is the most commonly known electric vehicle, and everybody recognizes it instantaneously. Like when we photocopy now, we say Xerox. When we say EV, a lot of people think it is only Tesla. What we should remember is electric vehicle is in 1884 using lead acid, and it was the most popular means of mobility in the late 1800s, early late 19th century. It was the most common thing before Model T from Ford came up. Electric vehicles were the most common part, whether it's in the US or in Europe. Electric vehicles were very common, and they were using lead acid. Very interestingly, nearly 125 years later, we're still using lead acid batteries, and we're still making vehicles in India and many countries where lead acid batteries are still used. So we shouldn't look at this technology of what's happening in electric vehicles to be something new. It's been there for a long time. It went out of fashion when the IC or the internal combustion engines became very popular with diesel and petrol, with Model T from Ford coming in 1920s. Post that, EVs went down because they were not seen as viable option because of one common problem, what we call as range anxiety. Where do I charge my vehicles? And very interestingly, again, it's the same problem we are talking even now. So we'll talk about this when we go forward. In India, if you have been following or if you're trying to find out where is an electric vehicle, the first thing which comes to your mind would be this, if you've seen it. This was the first, though it is not the first, but it was one of the most commercially viable option which came in. It was called REVA in 2001, Revolutionary Electric Vehicle Alternative, that is REVA. It later got bought by Mahindra. Now, later it was renamed as E2O. There is a newer iteration of this vehicle which is even now on the road. However, what we forget is that there are a million plus electric vehicles already in India. And if you are in North India, you would have for sure seen this vehicle, but we never recognize them as an electric vehicle. So this is called e-rickshaw. There are almost 1.5 million of lead acid based. Like I told you, even 125 years back, we were doing exactly the same vehicle. These vehicles are still used for last mile mobility, and they don't go beyond 30 kilometers per hour. If you have seen it, you should recognize these vehicles to be electric vehicles, lead acid based. Of course, it's not the cleanest of the vehicle in terms of technology. You can't call it a clean tech vehicle because the lead acid batteries do pollute. And there is a big roadmap to move these vehicles into lithium ion vehicles now. And you will see many, many more of these. Even last year, I think 100,000 of these vehicles were sold just in a few cities. So when we looked at India, so what's happening in the automobile industry? I tried to summarize with just one slide. There are a lot of things happening, and currently, with or without COVID, I think most of these things were going on. Uh, we start to use this word called ACES or CASE. The idea here is to say first is all the vehicles going forward are connected. So everything will be connected in electric vehicle case. We are connecting the powertrain, we are connecting the battery, we are connecting the charging stations. All of them are getting connected. It's getting electric. Electric is only a one form of clean mobility. Though electric is being pushed as the way of going forward, there are still hydrogen fuel cells coming in from Japanese vendors, which is being deployed in several markets. India is still evaluating it, and there are trials starting off on that. There are vehicles which are using ultra capacitors, very different technology from pure electric vehicles. So multiple methods have been tried, but electric is the most common at this moment in the market. Shared, I think India made shared mobility a huge topic in terms of how the urban transport works, whether it's last mile, just in time, rentals, leasing, all of that happened in India in a very, very big way. Now, if you ask me what's the impact of COVID, I know somebody asked the question in the previous talk by Robert. Shared mobility has had a huge impact now in India. If you have been using Bounce or Vogo or any of those shared mobility, all those businesses are facing a huge challenge at this moment. So, because of social distancing and ability to maintain distance is making people to think how would they use shared mobility. I think that is something for us to think as a market. This space is getting a little challenged and disrupted. Last being autonomous. Something which we always say and laugh in India, saying, would it ever work on Indian roads? Probably it's going to be a challenge to get it working on Indian roads. But if you remember, there are a lot of other kind of mobility in warehouses, in closed circuits, where autonomous vehicles is already being used and being tried. So, case ACES is some word you need to remember because that is something which is happening in the automobile industry. Now, why electric vehicles? We picked up on the topic in the last slide. Uh, the most common topic which comes up with it's a clean mobility. It's a cleaner mobility, lesser pollution. But what we need to remember is the less pollution is at the point where the vehicle is being used. That is in the city, in the urban city, or wherever we use it. But is it really clean? Is it really carbon neutral? Is something which we all need to think and discuss because, for instance, in many countries, including India, 65% of our electricity is generated by burning coal. So, if we need more electric vehicles, we are going to burn more coal, which means the pollution is not in the city, but the pollution now is increased at the point of generation, which will be more in the rural area and the industrial belts where the pollution increases. So, this is a challenge which every country is going through. And India, interestingly, is moving a lot more towards solar, given our climate and given our geography. And I think that hopefully helps us to get out of this challenge. But for many more years, we will not be out of burning coal. So I think that's something we need to remember. But there are other benefits of being electric vehicle, not only being the only cleaner, because of the architecture of the vehicle, the way it is done with very simple electric motors and batteries, the amount of moving parts in the current automobile to compare to the EV, now EVs have 80% lesser moving parts. So how does it help? It helps to make it easy in manufacturing, extremely easy in maintaining, and also longevity of these vehicles are more because there are less number of moving parts in the vehicle. I think that is something for us to remember. At this point of time, the price of electricity is much cheaper compared to crude oil. Now, you can also ask me a question in the last months, the crude oil price went down, and how will it impact EV? I think this is going to be a tussle, a fight in the next century, I would say, because EVs are not going to be a topic which will get over in 10 years. Uh, Countries have been planning up to 2050, 2060 in terms of transitioning. Even by 2040, only around 10% of the vehicle in the global market are expected to move towards electric vehicles. So there is going to be always a tussle in terms of oil price vis-a-vis electricity price. But if you currently see in Indian market, the electricity charge is so low that if you are using an equivalent electric vehicle to an IC engine comparison, if per kilometer the price is 4 rupees in diesel or a petrol engine, it comes down to less than a rupee in an EV. So that's where there is a lot of business sense for transport, logistics, uh, urban mobility in terms of road transport organizations, last mile connectivity, all of them really like the electric vehicles because the cost of operating these vehicles are much lower because of maintenance. The fuel expenses are extremely low. And just as a point on cleaner alternative, uh, as you all know, we have the one of the most polluted cities in the world. During COVID, it was seen that Delhi's pollution level came so low that there is a big argument now to see we should use electric vehicles in most of the urban cities because the impact of reduced pollution is drastic. It is, we saw the exciting parts about EV, but why are they not being deployed so fast in every country? There are many challenges. One is what is called as range anxiety. Though right now, after many years, I've also come to a point that it really is not a challenge, but it's a common problem in everybody's mind because uh, in a petrol or a diesel engine, if you're on the road, you know you will find a station or a pump to fuel your vehicle in a very short distance. You don't know where the chargers are. Where can I charge my vehicle if I run out of fuel? So in many cities, we did a study. Most of the vehicles are charged at home in the night, and the range they give you is between 100 kilometers to 300 kilometers based on the kind of vehicle, size of battery, all of that. And in India, if you are an urban commuter, you really don't do 100 kilometers unless in a Delhi region you're going from Noida to Gurgaon and back again. In most cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, you really don't use more than 100 kilometers for an urban mobility. So range anxiety within a city is definitely not a big challenge. But of course, if you are planning to do an intercity travel is where the range anxiety becomes an issue. And government is trying to solve this by installing EV chargers all around the country at this point of time. The other challenge is most of the vehicles are take more time to charge. I will talk about it in the next slides. So availability of fast chargers, how fast can I charge is something which is a challenge. The price of the vehicle, the battery forms 46% to 48% of the vehicle cost. At this moment, batteries cost a lot. The lithium ion batteries is one of the chemistry. Multiple chemistries have been tried, but lithium ion is the most common chemistry being used, and it is very expensive. And this is a challenge, and it's expected that the moment it comes down below $100 by 2025, the price of an electric vehicle and a regular vehicle will probably be the same, and then there is no brainer to switch towards electric vehicles. That's called the inflection point of electric vehicles. Uh, Time to switch. All of us have electric vehicles, so it takes more time for us to get rid of our current vehicle. So that's one of the reasons time limited choice of vehicles, not too many, but in India, we are now starting to get many more models. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And not everybody has capability to manufacture batteries now. The cells are always done in one or two countries. So most countries are concerned about it. Again, it's just a concern right now, but I'm quite sure this gets resolved. And also the technologies are also rapidly changing. For instance, Robert is here on the call. Europe was using a CCS standard, which is the most common standard. Nissan, which is a Japanese company, uses a CHAdeMO standard. So suddenly now they released a car in Europe which uses CCS standard. So it's changing standards everywhere. India is using all the standards. And yeah, network support and maintenance networks are an issue. So given these challenges, there is still a lot of sale going on. In terms of percentage of sales, very interestingly, Norway or Scandinavian countries lead this space. Norway, Sweden, Finland, Netherlands. These are the places where we see a lot of electric vehicles being sold as a percentage of their overall vehicle. Also interesting is that Norway is very rich in oil, but it's one of the countries which is definitely invested by policy to say we will move towards electric vehicles. So most of the innovation is happening in this space. We should not forget China here because that's extremely important from the other side of the graph, where you will notice that though Norway is by percentage, by surely by the number of vehicles being sold and the number of investment being done in electric vehicles, it's China which leads the world market in a huge way. If you notice here, in terms of number of vehicles sold, China tops way beyond every other country. Norway is still a smaller number in comparison to that. So I think that is something for us to remember. One is by how the government is pushing, and second is by the sheer number. And China has also led to a lot of innovations, not just in four-wheeler vehicles, but market very similar to India in terms of two-wheelers, three-wheelers, other category of vehicles. I think what China is doing is something what we would probably in India also adopt going forward. But on the car side, probably Scandinavia led, and California is the other area where I think there has been a lot of investment and a lot of interest in electric vehicles. Tesla leads the way from California. US, not all states of US are equally ready for electric vehicles. I think it's predominantly the West Coast, California based, where there's a huge technology advancement in terms of how electric vehicles do. In India, what does it mean? So, what we always say here in India is it's going to be multimodal. India is such a large, populous country. We can't depend on one kind of mobility. So, I think multimodal is what is getting important. Most of logistics and last mile is getting electric now. There's a lot of interest there. And shared is what we believed in, but we'll see post-COVID how this gets transformed. Logic for India, why should we do that? We have the top polluted cities, like I already gave an example. Um, I mean, during the lockdown period, we really noticed that the pollution levels came so low, and it made a strong sense. And government even used it in many discussions to say there was always a topic to find out is transport is one of the reasons for pollution, or is it just the industrial pollution? Thanks to COVID, we could really remove the vehicles from the road now for months, 3 weeks to a month, and then the pollution levels dropped. So I think it is definitely one of the biggest polluters in many major cities. So I think that is getting a big push on government to make policies to move towards electric mobility. We are the top three oil importer in the world. We don't have our own oil field in a big way. So I think moving our reliance from oil into electricity would be a very good thing because we are power surplus in electricity. Contrary to what everybody thinks that India doesn't have electricity, that's not true. India is power surplus. We have 364 gigawatts, which is much more than what we actually consume. And in fact, we export power to Nepal and adjoining countries because as you know from electricity, once you generate, you can't store it. So we actually just distribute it to the neighboring countries and make some money out of it. So and the share of solar is increasing in a big way. And by 2025, it is supposed to cross 20%. So the idea is that the surplus power we get from solar would be used towards substituting for oil into electric mobility. And that's the long-term vision and strategy. So hopefully that works very well. And most of the transition into electric vehicle will happen with a lot of digital technologies. Unlike in the past, I think thanks to telecom revolution and Jio making 4G affordable for everybody in India across the country, I think everybody is now a digital native. They know how to use 4G networks, and probably we are one of the largest 4G networks in the world. So it's going to help transitioning into electric vehicles. But what we should remember is that though there is a lot of talk on electric vehicles in other countries, in Europe and in US, India and China are very similar. India is still a little more unique in the sense that our market is 80+% only two-wheelers, mopeds, bikes, and motorbikes and scooters. We make 80% of that, and three-wheeler is around three. So it's almost like 83% of the market is very unique market, which is not same as what other countries have. So though we learn from other countries in terms of what is going on and what technologies, what we need to do is something very unique, and probably just one of few countries in Asia will fall do that. So there is a big push on saying how do we transform the two-wheeler market. And if you notice, most of the innovation happening now in India is around the two-wheel segment, and not so much on the cars. That's the reason you don't hear much around that space. So just wanted to just jump into a little bit into looking at the technology part of it. What does a car mean? What does the charger mean? What does the digital technology mean? So when I look at kinds of electric vehicle, you need to know these terms. A lot of different people use different terms. There is a hybrid electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and battery electric vehicle. These are just a terminology. What we need to remember in very simple terms is it's a way to transition from a regular vehicle to an electric, purely electric vehicle. Hybrid is, there is a gasoline engine, everything is gasoline, but there is a small battery inside, but it still depends mostly on gas, and the battery gets charged using electric motor, and it's only used as a range extender to push a little bit, to give more other functionality in the car, and that's not the primary uh, driver for getting the vehicle moving. Plug-in, but here again, this battery is not chargeable in hybrid, because in hybrid the battery charges using the motor. When you brake and when the car is driving, the battery charges and it is used back into the vehicle. Whereas in a plug-in hybrid, there is a bigger battery and the battery can be charged, and this definitely gives you a good amount of electric vehicle coming in. And Toyota Prius and all of them are the early generation of electric vehicles are these, where the battery takes over, but now gas gives you the range extension. So it's just flipped the other way around. So this is the most common, but what is happening in India and others are, we are not going this way. We leapfrog both these and went directly to this. We didn't do any of these two. Right now, we are 100% electric, only battery with an electric motor, and that's how it runs. This is how the typical Tesla and other cars are. If you look at the car itself, car, two-wheeler, all of them architecture is the same. What we need to remember is it's a vehicle. There are a few things. If you look at an IC engine to a regular electric vehicle, first thing is, what is the fuel? The fuel is no longer oil, it's now energy, electricity. So you need to store it in the car. So typically you have a battery, which is a lithium-ion battery, which is below your seat, below the car for better stability and structural stability of the car. Sometimes it is also kept in the rear trunk, front trunk, depends on the size of the car, the design of the vehicle. Usually it is below. In a two-wheeler, it is below your seat, the two batteries below your seat. Uh, these are very regular cells like AAA batteries, which come in lithium-ion batteries, but packaged in a way with a controller and a software which manages the voltage and the current. So one problem solved. We know it's an energy stored here. So how does it run? How does it work? Usually, it's a electric motor with a power control unit, which is what we need. So it's like an induction motor. It takes the electricity from the battery. There is a power control unit which converts the DC to AC and gives it to the induction motor. And as you know, if you have studied induction motors, they are the easiest of the motors which has been there in the market for nearly 100+ years. So all you need to do is change the amplitude and the frequency of the signal which goes in. You can accelerate, you can make it faster or go slower, and that is used for making the vehicle move. And usually the traction device is tied into the vehicle wheel or a unit like what you see in this picture. Both in the two-wheelers, the motor is actually in the wheel itself. It's inbuilt into the wheel. so that everything is done, and that's where everything else is controlled electronically by power control unit and the vehicle control unit. So the car becomes a lot more digital than mechanical. So it's all digitally controlled with signals and control. When you press your accelerator, it's actually electrical signals going on into an electronic device which decodes that and decides how much uh, frequency should be changed, how much current should be changed, and then the vehicle starts to move. And when we are doing this, also what is interesting is that you should know that the motor can act more as a motor and also as a generator. So when you do a braking of the vehicle, it does the reverse work. It actually now becomes a generator when it is going in the stop. The vehicle is about to be stopped. That charges the battery. So that's what is called the regenerative charging. So it's a very simple philosophy. You give the current, it moves forward. When you're stopping, it actually acts other way around. It rotates other way around and charges the battery back. So I think that is a very powerful way electric vehicles use it. Of course, to ensure that this battery gets charged, you need to have a plug. So that's the plug. Some of them are quick or AC charge or DC charge. I'll talk about it in the next slide. So you need to have an onboard charger to charge the batteries. I think that's something which the car will have. So if you notice, other than that, it's just the body of the car. You don't need anything else. It's all the rest of them are all electronics which you need to add into the vehicle. Yeah. So in India, when you look at the same kind of vehicles now, the most advanced and the popular one is Ather. All the others are launching it. Greaves is the most popular in terms of numbers. Bajaj has launched it. TVS has launched it. There are many, many more startups launching the two-wheel vehicle because this segment is 85% of our segment, and we really need a lot of innovation to happen in this segment to uh, get things running. On the three-wheel side, there is a lot of vehicles coming with different designs because again, this segment, we will have two categories of vehicles. One is called auto rickshaws and e-rickshaws. Auto rickshaws are what you are seeing, which can go beyond 50 kilometers per hour. E-rickshaws is the old vehicle I showed you. Though those cannot go beyond 30 kilometers per hour. I think there is going to be a speed limit between the two vehicles. On the way cars, we did not have much option other than the e-Verito and the E2O. Now a very nice car has been launched, Nexon and Hyundai Kona, MG Hector, and Great Wall of China is the other model which is coming into the market. But you will pretty see a lot of Japanese vehicles in the market coming in. And all of these have a pretty higher price tag. Kona is almost twice as expensive as its IC engine variant. So it's a very premium car right now, but it gives you almost 350 kilometers per hour per charge. So it's a pretty long range. Nexon also gives you nearly 200 plus. So these vehicles are removing the range anxiety from people's mind. But what is important is they're slightly more expensive than the IC engine variants. Buses, all the road transports are moving in. We have Electra BYD, which is a Chinese bus, which is the most popular one right now on the road. Tata Motors is launched some of them. Ashok Leyland is launching it, and there are many more people who are launching as we are talking, JBM and others. These are a different form of vehicles. This is for two-wheelers for shared mobility in electric form, and these are for last mile Yulu bikes, and there are many of them like this. These are electric hybrid bikes, the bicycle kind of a form factor made electric, but with a lot more stability, which can be used in the last mile. So in Bangalore, Ahmedabad, Mumbai, a lot of cities you will find the Yulu bikes. Of course, these are evolving. This is the first generation. There are nearly 10,000 of them now in multiple cities. That's just to give you some idea on the vehicle. Now, these vehicles have to be charged. So how does it work? I talked about it very briefly. You know there is a battery in the vehicle. So now there are two ways of charging these batteries, and that is a huge technology by itself. And this is where the grid and the electrical industry people come in, no longer the automobile guys. The other part was automobile. Here it is more about electrical industry. If the vehicle has a charger on board which can convert, which is nothing but an inverter which converts AC to DC, then it is called an AC charger. Because on the outside, you just need to ensure that you're giving the AC power, but the vehicle itself has an onboard charger which converts the AC into DC and charges the battery. This is called the slow charging because the vehicle will not have a big inverter, so the electrical equipment will be small. So it's like a mobile battery or a phone battery, laptop battery charging. It takes more time to charge. The fast charging doesn't happen here. It takes in several hours to 8 hours to charge a car. So, but at home charging, this is the best. When the vehicle is parked for a longer time, this is the best because the equipment itself is very cheap. On the other side, you want to have fast chargers like Tesla chargers or DC fast chargers, 150 kilowatt, 250 kilowatt chargers. Now for buses, we are going up to 1 megawatt chargers. They can charge the battery very fast. Then the car or the vehicle does not have anything. It just has a socket. All the electrical equipment is moved into the bigger charger called the DC fast charger. They have all the inverters, all the heavy electrical equipment, and they can charge the car at a very high rate. Like I said, it can go up to 1 megawatt, which is massive. But in India, we are starting at 15 kilowatt up to 150 kilowatt. That's what we are doing because our grid has its own challenges to give a huge capacity for each charge. And when we are doing that, the other thing we need to remember is the battery itself has limitation. The vehicle has to have best-in-class battery and the BMS to be able to get this high capacity current to flow into the battery. So though the bulk chargers can do a fast charging, the big chargers can do fast charging, it also is dependent on the battery and the BMS, something we should remember. These are the kind of chargers. These are two-wheeler chargers, very tiny laptop kind of chargers, to AC chargers, which are wall mounted, and to very high voltage DC chargers. You will have multiple kinds of them. In India, we are also trying what is called as battery swap station, where instead of charging your vehicle, you keep a ready charged battery, and when the vehicle comes, you just swap the battery, like we did with the LPG cylinders and the gas cylinders, which was used in cars. So I think CG kits, which was used, we are now trying to do a battery swap. The challenge here from a technology point of view, when you are a technology manager, what you need to do is to really figure out where do I bet, what technology do I go behind. The connectors itself are having a huge challenge because there are multiple type of connectors to give the electricity to the car. Uh, each country is following a different one, and AC, DC, all of them differ in terms of the plug socket format. The three common ones are GB, which is a Chinese standard, CCS Type 1 and Type 2, which is Europe standard, CHAdeMO, which is a Japanese standard, and US use CCS 1 and now CCS 2, and Tesla has its own standard for charging. Now, also interesting thing which is going on is GB and CHAdeMO are coming together, and there is a new standard called CHAoG. CHAoG is the next standard coming up, which is supposed to merge CHAdeMO and GBT, but that's again probably several years from now. India has to make a choice of this. We try to make our own connector based on ISO standards, but I think for two-wheelers it is being done, but not for cars. Currently, we support GB standard for certain segment of cars, the lower voltage cars, CCS or CCS and CHAdeMO for all kinds of charge. But that brings a big challenge on the chargers because now you need guns like this, not one kind of gun, multiple kinds of guns in your thing. If you notice, this charger has all the three types. It increases the cost of the charger and it makes it difficult for people to deploy. So I think this is a challenge which every technology manager has in terms of where do I bet, which standard do I go behind. Okay, so so much on technology, but where do you see these chargers? The smaller ones, AC chargers, you will see at home and work. At parking, you will start seeing faster chargers, public places, highways, for logistics and others, transport hubs. And there is also a concept saying the charge can come to you wherever you are. Some of the companies in California are doing it, also starting in India. That is, if you have parked your vehicle, the battery comes to you with a charge, and they will plug in and charge your vehicle. Not the most economical in markets like India, and that's where we are looking at the battery swappable for platform. A lot more things will happen for autonomous cars. There is a method to see how it could be charged. Ultra capacitor chargers are coming up, pantograph based chargers where the bus can stand there and the capacitor can be charged with extremely high voltage directly from the pantograph, and it can go for a short distance. Wireless charging is being tried in Nagpur now, where when you're driving on the road has a conductive layer which will charge your vehicle. And lamppost, India has a lot of electrical poles. We are looking at how to make these lampposts useful with the solar equipment on top to charge bikes and two-wheelers. And vehicle roof, the car itself will become solar as we go forward, but that's taking some time. Yeah, so that was on the automobile and that was on electrical. Then there is something on digital. There's a lot of IoT sensors and a lot of IoT equipment into the vehicle, and all of them have telematics inbuilt into it. So I think this is a segment which is growing extremely fast because you need to standardize it and get this in place. So India is getting all the vehicles connected as we go forward. On the technology and electronic side, BMS is one of the key elements in electric vehicle. So if you're a student, this is an area to research and work on because in future, this is the topic which will make a huge difference in terms of how the vehicles manage their energy. So I think this is a lot to do with software and electronics. For the chargers, you have cloud-based systems which come in and try to manage all of that. So I think this is something you will see in, it's called the central management system. So all the chargers are controlled from the cloud. Coming towards end, so I've given you very quick update on all the three. Looking at what is the future, what are we looking at? So there are multiple success factors for this kind of vehicle to work in anywhere in the world, particularly in India. Like I said, connectors is the first topic to figure out because unless you get this right, your investment in infrastructure will go for a toss. So I think AC, DC, or kind of connector is an extremely important topic. The grid itself has to get ready. Though I said India is power surplus, we have challenges at the last mile in terms of the substations and the nano stations which are there. Can they manage 150 kilowatt chargers? Currently, not all of them can. So that, those have to be upgraded at the last mile of the grid to get these electric vehicles working. It's a huge opportunity for auto and telecom companies because all the vehicles are connected, all the components are sending data to the cloud, from the vehicle to the battery to the charger, all of them. So I think they see a huge opportunity in automotive transforming itself into electric. Battery, both battery cell makers and the battery pack makers, there is a huge opportunity for them. Uh, right now, India is only a battery back maker and a BMS and integrator. Cells are imported from other many different countries. So I think that will be a lot of reliance on another country. Unlike now, oil we depend on certain set of countries. For batteries, we will depend on certain set of countries. So I think there is a lot of work going on to see what alternate chemistry is there something indigenously can be built. Every country is thinking about it. Also, India is thinking about it. But at this moment, any player in this space, there is a huge opportunity. And because the vehicle itself will now change, you don't need all the traditional auto ancillaries who build all the auto components. Now you need a very different kind of players, starting from IoT devices to controllers and motors, which are very different from what the standard auto components were. So there are new players coming in this space. I think that's also very important for us to know that there is a huge opportunity in that space. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to summarize from electric vehicles. I will take questions after that. So I've just tried to give you a glimpse on three different aspects: the automobile side, the grid side, and the digital side. Before I conclude, I just want to wear my hat of Vice President of TEMS memberships. Please visit our site. There is a lot of action happening. We are doing a lot of activities, including this activity. Um, Globally, I think we are one of the very active societies in terms of getting all our members with multiple value, whether it's the webinars we run, whether it's the content we offer, the publications we have, the conferences we run, the industry forums we do. And like Andy already mentioned, India has been special in terms of what we have done in the last 1 year. So thanks to all the volunteers. I know many of you are student ambassadors who have contributed to this success. Also request, I think there are 70 odd of you here. I want each one of you to be a TEMS member. Do join us and let's do a lot of things in the next 1 year. Our goal here is to make you a leader. We want you to be a leader. It doesn't matter whether you're a student or a young professional, your leadership skills can start at a very young age. And TEMS will give you sufficient opportunity to learn, to practice, and also get to meet a lot of senior people around the globe. And as you see, there are people across the world coming in and contributing to every activity we are doing. So I think that's a community feeling, that's a strong bond we have. Would love to see all the 70 of you who have attended this session to become members. Please do join immediately. and then would love to have you as part of your community. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you. And I believe the future will be electrifying. So would love to see all of you joining in, and together we can do a lot more things. Thank you. Thanks to the team for this opportunity, and we will share and discuss whatever needs to be done. Questions, please. I can take the questions now.
Thank you so much, sir. And surely from your speech, like audience will be encouraged to join IEEE TEMS. So we have two questions from the Ibrahim. What infrastructures and the resources are required to support mass adoption of EV in a nation like India?
Yeah, Ibrahim, so I think I mentioned it briefly if you notice. One is it's a chicken and egg story. Will the vehicles come first or the infrastructure? Uh, to get people to not have a fear of where do I charge my vehicle? So infrastructure is extremely important. But unless you get a lot of vehicles, there is no business case for infrastructure. So that's the reason at this moment, government is investing in bringing in the infrastructure part on from the grid side. Most of the distribution companies are investing in chargers, charging equipment around the country. We are now installing around 3,500 in the next 1 year, and followed by a lot more private players installing it. So I think that's the first step which you will see. And once that infrastructure is in place by next year, you will see at least many Japanese automakers bringing in their cars. So we will have probably a dozen plus electric vehicles next year, and that should start the car part of it. And two-wheeler, we already have many models, and that will sort of disrupt the current two-wheeler market on the regular, the Hero or the TVS or Bajaj. You will see all of them move to electric, and that would be a big change. So Divya,
Thank you
back to
so
you.
much, sir. So what are the major implications for EV for multiple industries, countries, and society at large?
Yeah, so like I said, it is going to be an impact on three different industries: auto industry, electrical industry, and digital industry. So it's the same around the world. On the auto side, the traditional automakers might get very disrupted in this change. There may be a lot of new players who will emerge, a lot of startups, a lot of companies who will probably move towards making the vehicles, who never thought about it in the traditional sense, because the IC engine vehicles are so complicated with so many components. You need to have a proper supply chain. Your logistics have to be in shape for you to get the whole thing working. But in an electric vehicle, anybody can do it in with a bit of investment. So you may find a lot of new players emerging in the auto side, and a lot of auto ancillaries will go maybe out of business or transform into making components for electric vehicles. But of course, don't take it too drastically. Like I mentioned, the complete electrification is probably 50 years from now. So the regular industry will still remain, but there will be some disruption in this auto side. And the form factor of vehicles will change. Autonomous vehicles may even make a very different looking form factor of vehicles, which right now we don't have. It may not look like a traditional car or a bike. On this second side, on the grid side, all countries will now look at how to strengthen their electric grid, because it's not just industries and people using electricity, the vehicles will start using electricity. I think that will now impact the way the final set of infrastructure will be built in all the markets. And for that, I foresee a lot of investment, a lot of new players coming in. And electricity distribution is no longer centralized. All governments are making it privatized, particularly Europe and India. Anybody can now do it. In India, you can install a charger in front of your home. There is no challenge now. Government gives you permission to do that. But there are some tariff limitations, but you can do that. So which will mean we will see a huge infrastructure building which will happen in a very different way, like an STD box which happened in telecom revolution. Suddenly, for a few years, you may see chargers everywhere till the market settles down. So I think that's another space where we will see a lot of disruption. Third is on the digital, like I said, it's a big advantage for a country like India with software powerhouse and design powerhouse. So there is a lot of work which will happen across all kinds of vehicles, and everything will be connected. So telecom infrastructure gets importance, because these are very critical equipment, because when the vehicle is moving and the data is being sent, you better have everything done in the right way, which will also push for the 5G rollout to happen faster. I remember Robert talking about 5G rollout in Netherlands already. India has now slowed down the 5G rollout, waiting for another 2 years. But EV can push, or the connected vehicles may have a push towards getting the 5G networks in the country. So overall, I see it as a positive thing. It's not going to make any major losses for anybody, but the whole auto industry will transform itself along with the grid and the digital industry. Divya, back to you.
Thank you so much, sir. We have two more questions, but we will, due to the time constraint, we will take it offline. Thank you
Sure,
so
sure.
much, sir.
Hey, thanks all of you. Would love to see, again, I repeat, would love to see all of you joining in times.